All right, so while we're getting settled, hi, it's chill the fuck out time. My name is Harmony. My pronouns are they and them. Thank you for joining me today. So with this healing circle, I just wanted to let everyone know up front, this is all for your own personal peace of mind, for your own sense of ease. So you are welcome to engage or not engage as much as feels good today. If you want to have your mic on mute and your camera off, that's totally fine. If you'd like to pop on or engage in the chat, that's also fine. But what's important to me is that you feel, that the space is your own and the space feels healing. So, like I said, there's no right or wrong way to be in this circle. So take whatever time you need, because the next hour is dedicated to you. It's about your needs and what feels best for your self-care. So I'd love to take just a few grounding breaths. We did an exercise last time that I rather enjoyed, and just taking a little imaginative break really quick. I'd like for us to imagine that we are blowing bubbles outside, and just taking that little bubble wand, maybe dipping it in some of that bubble solution. I don't know how big those bubbles are going to be, but when you got it ready, we're going to breathe in through our nose, hold at the top, and then deep exhale. So here we go, breathing in, holding at the top, and blowing out like we're blowing out bubbles. All right, let's try it again, making long, slow breaths to make lots of big bubbles. Here we go. Holding at the top, and then one more, connecting with your breath. Deep breath in, breathing in fresh air and sunshine and spring air, and exhaling as long as we can. All right, so I hope you are feeling connected, grounded, at least breathing. I like to start with that because having a long exhale helps us lower our heart rate. So at whatever stage we're in throughout this call, if you want to revisit that exercise to, again, lengthen that exhale and decrease the heart rate, please take your, take your self-care as you need it. But today I'd like to chat a little bit about where everybody's at, what kind of things are coming up, but I'd also love to share some resources around self-care and ways that we can connect with our bodies during this time, because it's challenging. It is challenging, and there's so much stress, and everybody's stress looks a little bit different. But I don't know about everybody else, but yeah, moving, staying connected here, breathing. It's a full-time job. It's a full-time job right now. So if you are in that boat as well, I see you, I feel you. So today is about joy-centered healing. Quick little note too about cannabis. If you do want to smoke, or if you do want to use any cannabis products throughout this healing circle, you're welcome to, but by no means do you need to. It's completely at your own, at your own intention, at your own comfort. And currently right now I'm like, I smoked a few hours ago, but for me, I'm like, I'm not going to smoke this call. So just wanted to put that out for everybody first. So just to check in, I would love, if you feel up to engaging in the chat, to cultivate that stillness. And if you can tell me about maybe 1 to 2 colors that you see in your surrounding area. Is there anything color-wise that you notice that catches your eye? And what we're doing is we're kind of just building that awareness out from our breath, noticing the world around us, approaching it with a soft gaze. And you can either make a mental note of these things that you're seeing, or you can drop them in the chat if you feel like sharing your view. I'll share mine. I'm looking at a painting, a print that I have, and it has a really cute combination of this like sandy pink color and this really dusty purple, and then like a blue sky and clouds. And I just like looking at it. I feel like sunset. But yeah, any colors, appreciating the world around us. Orange yarn and blue walls. Ooh, looking at the oils that are in your window and the light coming through. That's a beautiful color. What a special one. Yeah, or the way it interacts with light. And sometimes by pausing and like taking in the world around us in a different way, especially when it's really easy to get, that sense of like stir craziness, that cabin fever. Calling in new appreciation and new relationships to the things around us can be really either reinvigorating or at least playful. And I think there's ways that we can approach play in a way that kind of like gives life to the places around us. What about textures? Does anybody have any textures that they're feeling? Nice textures. This is also an opportunity to kind of like loosely wiggle, loosely move. If you want to like feel where you're seated, feel what's around you. I'm at a table, which is wood, and it's quite cool. It's a little chilly where I am, so I've got this blanket, and the blanket feels nice and fuzzy, soft and light, and kind of slips off my shoulders a lot, but feels nice and textured. Yeah, checking in with textures, checking in with things that feel pleasurable. The texture of your pants. You said super soft cotton. Me too. Yeah. Is anybody noticing any other textures around them? From their maybe smells? Soft but rough textures. That's a nice contrast. Anyone have any smells? Interesting air? Things that you're noticing around you? And if you want to stick with one of these senses, by all means, you're welcome to. Just stick with it for a moment. Someone's cutting their grass outside. Just a little bit of like fresh cut grass. That sounds nice. Cedar incense. Ooh, that's. I wish my house smelled like cedar incense. That sounds lovely. I don't know. I like this because it also kind of feels like we're kind of building a collective room where we're all sitting. Kind of imagining what other people are seeing as well. I've been finding that I have to stay pretty creative in order to stay connected in a virtual space. I don't know if that resonates with you all, but yeah, it's hard being just like a tile and a talking head. And I think the more we can engage our senses and just kind of remember that we are all experiencing the world at the same time. And in this moment, we're all on Zoom, but we're all together. And there's a way for that to feel close, even when we're not directly engaging. I'd love to try out a little, I've been playing around with this in my head, and I'd love to share it because I know that right now, greetings and showing affection are really challenging. We're doing social distancing, and I definitely know that, yeah, it's hard to feel both, I don't know, emotionally connected when we're doing so much screen time, but being touch starved is definitely a symptom, right? It's something that occurs when we don't receive enough physical touch. I will speak from my experience in certain situations. So I used to be in the military. I was deployed on a ship for 6 months. And during that 6 months, I wasn't getting any. And during that 6 months, I also wasn't getting a lot of hugs. And it's really hard not to go a little bit, again, like all these other symptoms come up around not getting enough physical touch. But there are ways that we can give this to ourselves in a way that even if we're in this virtual circle together, we can still stay connected through touch to ourselves. So one of the things that I like to do, and feel free to join along with me if this feels good for you, is self-hugs. And a self-hug is exactly the way it sounds. Just wrap your arms nice and tight around you in a way that feels nice and embracing. There's a few ways that you can do this as well, just to kind of deepen that connection. If you want to rest your hands over your neck, I'm kind of crossing them behind my head, creating a little cradling effect. That feels nice. Having one arm kind of tucked underneath the armpit and the other one wrapped around also feels nice. And I think I like playing with this as well. You can move them lower if that feels safe, you know, wrap around your torso. But I think reacquainting ourselves with our own touch is part of bridging that touch-starved symptom. And we can, you know, reassure ourselves with physical touch as well. That means like light squeezes, like, you know, a gentle hand on the back of the neck. These can all be very grounding. But my little other experiment is because hugs in person are just not available to everybody right now. As a way of greeting, I was talking to another educator about this. They do, their name is Serenib, or what is it? Their Instagram is Who Stole Serenib, but they are a yeah, you know, you're familiar with the work. Yay, yes, yes, and they do nonviolent communication. But we were discussing about how do you greet each other and show affection in a virtual or even like 6 feet apart space. And we had sort of a brainstorm around like, well, what if we hugged ourselves the way we were going to hug the other person? We're not engaging directly, but we're still representing it physically on ourselves. And that's, you know, if you'd like to try that out in the social isolation time or virtual affection showing, I think that's well worth it. I encourage you to play around with this. I think we're all kind of trying to explore ways that we can maintain that intimacy when we're spread out like this. But yeah, I'd love to hear how that feels for you. If you have any thoughts or observations about how that embrace feels for you. If anyone has thoughts, feel free to drop them in the chat. We can keep checking in. Oh, Nicole says my neck needed that. It's calming to your stomach to feel touch. Ooh, that's really good linking. So actually, I like that. I'm a very physical person. It's been hard with all this distancing. I feel you. Well, like not literally. Can't feel you. But I feel you. Ooh, that's a good tip. So if anybody is following Transformative Massage, I highly recommend you do so because they're offering one-on-one self-massage coaching. So because bodywork is not it's not available right now due to social distancing, creating a self-massage practice at home can be really, really fruitful in, again, providing yourself with physical touch and healing. But Nicole brought up the point, Nicole had a consultation as well, but like rubbing your hands to warm them up and then giving yourself that hug or that touch can feel really nice as well. So we can change like kind of the texture, the warmth, and be intentional with how we are giving ourselves that type of physical affection. Yes, and infusing your hands with love and gratitude and intention and warmth, I think is a really wonderful start. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, yeah, that mapping, right? Mandy, you brought up that it was soothing to your stomach, right? That makes a lot of sense. So we hold a lot of tension as well as a lot of knowledge in our stomach. And I'll kind of explain, right? When we talk about a gut instinct, I don't know about everybody here, but like I feel it like whew, gut instinct starts to happen somewhere in this zone. And part of why feelings come up in this way, like we can feel emotions in our body as sensation before we even unpack them in our mind. That's partly because our nervous system has this really cool feature called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve runs from our brain through our body, and it kind of talks to a lot of our really necessary organs. So it's always doing this kind of communication back. But if our body starts to feel unsafe or tense, some of those vital organs will start sending those signals of unsafety back to the vagus nerve, back to the mind. But we don't always know what they're for. So it might just feel like, oh, I'm feeling kind of tense, right? My breath feels like it's catching. Maybe I'm feeling some tightness. Maybe that response feels like a physical sensation, but there's not a clear link up here of like what emotion that corresponds to. but working backwards and going, okay, well, if I hug myself and I feel that soothing and it releases something here, that's giving me some like valuable somatic information about how I can kind of check in with my body, but also how I can self-soothe working from movement into the body itself. So that's, I think, the really cool thing about movement is it allows us to talk to our nervous system and engage with it in a way that the healing that we want, like we can help create that, right? We're not just responding to signals within our body. I have another movement exercise to share on that note. So we already worked with some embrace, sitting with something nice and gentle. And I'd love to invite you, if this feels good, to gently sway and move. And what we're doing right now, this doesn't have to be big, it can be very minimal. I'm almost rotating around like the sit bones in my pelvis, and I'm just letting my body move with it. You can make these circles bigger if you'd like. You can keep them small. You can turn them the other way. You can let your head go with it. And I hope you're breathing. But as you take more rotations, and I'm going to keep doing this while I talk because it feels good, I invite you to just kind of like put down whatever you've been carrying today. Whatever, just kind of letting it roll off. You know, I'm going to literally let this blanket roll off me. Whew. And we're just letting some of the day's heaviness move off of us, right? Setting that intention. And what we're also doing is we are stimulating our vestibular system inside of our inner ear. So our vestibular system is super cool. It's those tiny inner ear bones and fluids and hairs and itty bitty muscles, or like tiniest measurement devices that are inside of us, but they track movement. They tell us that we are moving in space, that we are currently in a different position than we were before, and it's also telling our brain that we can focus, that we can reduce stress, and that we're ready to learn. And I don't know how this feels for you. I don't know where you feel it in your body, but I'd love to just, offer some space to check in. Do you notice anything shift when you're moving this way? And if you want to ground again with that embrace, I invite you to do so as well. That feels good. Or if, you know what? We can combo this with mega hug. It's doable. It kind of feels nice, right? So think of it almost as like dancing with yourself. You can put a hand on your heart as well if that feels good. But all of these pieces are just giving us little points of data that we can kind of use in a toolkit for ourselves. Because what works for my movement is not necessarily the same as would work for yours. But some of these principles of like, okay, if I'm simulating the vestibular system, say that 5 times fast, it is turning on certain things in my brain that I am trying to encourage, right? So if I give myself space for movement, it's letting me talk to my nervous system in a different way and engage with it from the outside in rather than just noticing the inside out and going like, wait, why do I feel so like locked up and stiff? So I have talked about the vestibular system in some earlier work, but if anyone wants to take a guess, don't say it if you know it, but who are the natural experts on the vestibular system? If anyone wants to venture a guess on that. June's mouthing something. I don't know what you're saying, June.
I just said older white men.
You said older white men. Okay, so older white men claim to be the experts on the vestibular system, but there's a much better authority I would like to assert. Anyone want to give it one more shot? It's kids. So the way that children play and move around, all this rolling motions, you know how you can't get a kid to sit still? That's partly why. They're like, oh, this feels good. That's waking up my brain, that focus. That's sort of them preparing their bodies to learn. But the way that we are socialized is, well, we're preparing our bodies for stillness. We're preparing our bodies to be in a social space, meeting those conditions of like, okay, well, I take up this much room. I don't want to wiggle around too much because I don't want to seem uncontrolled. And I'm ready to be professional. Wow, that's not moving my vestibular system at all. Oh my gosh. So the way that kids interact with the world is actually very intuitive. And I think it's something that I'd like to encourage folks to remember, is that our body holds so much wisdom. It holds so many intuitive truths that if we can work back and like liberate those pieces and say like, hey, you know what, those are valid, right? Our bodies are creative. Our bodies are smart. We can listen to them, and it's not like, oh, this is just weird, right? I'm like, well, okay, I'm just weird, but this is all right. You can also be weird and use intuitive movement. Yes, playtime is liberation. Yay. Yeah, playtime does so much to engage our creative functions. It helps us also move in our bodies, wake those pieces up. I'd like to do a little bit more with that, because playtime also has a lot of capacity to support inner child work, right? A lot of folks carry with them, you know, wounded child or like wounded inner child stories, or could be feeling that there were some needs during childhood that were not met. And this can be really hard because those pieces might still feel very present, or they might be almost, yeah, taken for truth, right? That these are stories that become true because we haven't challenged them, or because, yeah, there's so many things that can come in the way between social expectations, conditioning, stress, being a grown-up. It's hard, right? So by accessing play, we can come back to that part of our bodies, and show it a little bit of love, right? So I wanted to get I'd love to hear a little bit more about you, if you're open to sharing. Did you have any like favorite games during recess? You remember any that you particularly liked? I can share a very specific one that I had. Foursquare! Foursquare! Wow, Foursquare was really, okay, we got 2 for Foursquare. Any other? Handball? Mm-hmm. Kickball and handball? Mm-hmm. Dodgeball? Mm. I think kids still play Foursquare. I think that's still a thing. It's probably an app now, so I don't know. Might be. So in all of these games, right, it's not just that they're not frivolous. They actually do a lot for our bodies and our nervous system. When we have that repeating back and forth, or that rhythm where we're like throwing a ball and it's bouncing back at a regular time, that is all helping us like send signals to our body of safety, which is really interesting because I don't know, I didn't feel safe during dodgeball when I was afraid of getting fucking hit with the ball. But when we are playing games and throwing things back and forth, it's creating trust with our partners, right? So if you have a ball or something to catch, playing catch with yourself at home, throwing something against the wall and letting it bounce back, can be really helpful in a few different ways, and I'd love to like kind of geek out about them really quick and share. So right now I'm using both sides of my body. That's bilateral stimulation. Bilateral stimulation is ensuring that if we are in some stress situation and the vagus nerve is telling our body like, all right, we're gonna shut down the rational brain and boost the signal on the emotional brain, that's a great plan, let's just stay there. That's creating that kind of imbalance of our body's like natural symmetry, or like the inclination for symmetry. And by stimulating both sides of the body by movement or by touch, it's kind of sending those signals back in towards our brain that like, hey, no, I don't need to just be like one side only, right? I can be rational and emotional. I can be balanced. I'm connected, right? And these are ways that pattern back to ourselves that we're in a safe space, right? That we are safe within our bodies. And that can help scale down. Someone referred to it as the polyvagal ladder. The vagus nerve is what I was speaking about before. It's super connected, but the polyvagal theory is that like there's an escalating almost switchboard of like, ooh, stress is here. We got to move this switch over, shut these things down, divert resources. And that's where we're at. It's like escalating up that ladder. So playing catch is one way of stimulating bilateral stimulation. Talking about handball, throwing back and forth. I really want to find out if I can play Foursquare through Zoom. Just give me time. I'm gonna try to figure that out. I feel like if I like bounce this to Mandy, and then Mandy, there we go. Mandy, can you pass it to Sarah? Sarah, can you just toss it back to June? Thank you. June, you got it? Okay, June, can you pass it to Nicole? We can't see Nicole. But Nicole, I'm hoping you get it and you pass it back. I'm gonna give it. No, we lost it. All right, we got it. Mandy, you up for one more round? I think we got four. We got Foursquare. Ready? Mandy, Sarah, June. Thank you. Congratulations, we played virtual Foursquare. So I don't know about you, but it like tickles me every time we get to interact that way, because there is a little bit of imaginative space, even in like anticipating your screen mate's timing of like, oh, it's coming, I know it's here, you know? There's something lovely about that. And I think there's other ways that we can incorporate play in a way that like we have created a game for ourselves, right? Yeah. So I had a lot of like imaginative play games. I was not sporty as a kid. So a lot of my games were in, creating a character. But I'd love to share like a little movement prompt. If it feels good in your body to move or dance, we can even do this without music. And we can actually do this from complete stillness. And I'm gonna share this as a way to get started, but I wanted to let folks know that, again, this is at your pace, at your comfort. So if you'd like to have your video off for your own privacy, you're welcome to do that. Or if you'd like to keep it on, you're welcome to do that as well. But yes, for this movement prompt, I think it would be, I'm just trying to like get into that recess headspace. And I know that with my friends, so you're ready for my game. This is what I played, recess, for like all of first grade. And it was an extended version where me and my two best friends, so the three of us, were all supermodels. I don't know why we chose supermodels, but we decided that that was a really good idea. It was like basically superheroes, but like lower stakes. And part of that was like you embody that character that you're playing as, right? So for this movement exercise, I'm not going to throw out supermodels directly, but in that spirit, yeah, if you would like to approach this with your eyes closed or open, we're going to take on a different character. And we're going to practice embodying that character for just a moment. And there's a little bit of like creative play space to do this exercise in a way that feels good for you. So if you'd like to do this completely visualizing, you can close your eyes and just visualize around you. You don't have to move. Or if you would like to incorporate your body, you can do this with your eyes open or eyes closed. But I'd like to invite you to imagine that you are a new creature. And you can be an alien creature, you can be a robot creature, but like really try to can you get into like recess headspace for like 5 minutes? Revisit that. So your creature probably has a backstory. They have a world that they live in, that they inhabit. And I want to just share that when we move, we embody our imagination for just that few moments. So if you want to embody something really fucking cool and you're just like a dragon with huge wings that like breathes fire, that's fine. That's great. That sounds, I don't know, I'm just a little restrained by the walls here, but I invite you to start thinking about like maybe body scanning through yourself and saying, all right, as this new creature, as this new being, what does the texture of my skin feel like? How do I sense around me? What kind of dominant senses do I have? Is it sight? Is it hearing? Is it touch? Am I floating? What does it feel like to float? We can try on these different qualities, right? And let's kind of take it a little bit further, right? What color of creature do you have? Are they wearing clothing? Are they wearing armor? Are they wearing scales? Or do they have feathers? Are they vibrant? Are they dark? Are they minimal? And if you want to take some gentle movement as well and say like, all right, what does their spine feel like? They have wings? How do they move their wings? If you want to get up and move, how do they walk? How do they slither? How do they crawl? How do they swim? And all these elements, we're just creating this like rich picture in our mind. And the more we can play with it, we can kind of revisit that, right? And the nice thing is, you can't really think about fucking COVID when you're a dragon, unless unless you really want to be a COVID fighting dragon. But the nice thing is that in this space, you can create as much latitude just to stay in that pleasurable creativity, right? So if you'd like to share some of your findings from this exploration, please feel free at any time to drop it in the chat. But we can keep extending this idea, right? I'd love to incorporate some of the objects around us. How would that creature interact with the space around them? And because we're kind of, again, just loosely playing with this idea, the wonderful thing, ooh, big wings and roaring. Mandy's roaring, I love that, right? We can add to this, we can build to this. Our bodies are creative, our bodies are generative of art. And what we're doing right now is we're creating story, right? And the fun part too is if you want to take this to the next little added portion. I'm not going to do this for right now, but bookmark whatever creature you had, and if you want to put on some music, maybe create a soundtrack for whatever character you had. I don't know why I keep thinking like really high fantasy, like you want to put on some like really epic sounding classical music with like lots of Lord of the Rings orchestration and just really let those wings go. There's a lot of ways that we can play this up, right? And I think what I feel important about sharing this is all of this movement is engaging those same principles that we talked about earlier, right? Bilateral stimulation, vestibular stimulation, all of these are like really good feel-good things for our body. And we can do them without knowing any steps. So I'd love to talk a little bit about dance and how dance can be healing. But I'd love to also kind of start from our understanding of dance. So again, inviting you if you feel open to chatting. But how would you define dance for yourself, or as an explanation that you would give to maybe a small child? Like, what is dance? A very gentle version of what is dance. Moving your body like no one is watching, that is definitely dance. Any other thoughts? I will share a few of my own. play in the solar body, intentional movement to sounds or rhythm or music. I like the intentional movement, right? Right, so I'm going to throw out some ways that I think about it. Okay, so it's to keep creativity and inspiration flowing. Great. So within dance, there's so many of these like really uplifting ways to think about it, right? It's like movement, it's freeness, it's wonderful, right? But we also have a lot of social messages that say dance is steps, dance is technique, dance is a level of skill and gracefulness, dance is performance. And while all of those elements can be true, it keeps a lot of us from saying that we are dancers, right? But the core of it, and this is what I truly believe, is that dance is body language. And because we each inhabit a body, each of our bodies has language. Dance is a way to convey that language. So I'm like connecting some of these little dots, and I just want to make sure that everybody's still feeling like this resonates. But if we can move freely and connect with that authentic movement, it's engaging all those other parts that we were talking about earlier, right? So just as a little experiment, because we're talking about body language. All right, I'm like, I'd love to really think through, if you're open to doing this with your video on, please feel free to share. But how would you offer a greeting if you weren't speaking? So you're on mute. I can also put myself on mute. So we're going to try an experiment. I'm going to try to share my greeting with you. This is my dance. And I just want to see if I can communicate it without words. Ready? Here we go. Do you want to try it? Does anyone want to try that next? Who wants to share their greeting without moving their actual, like, or without engaging words? Anyone like to try that? Offer a greeting. It can be as small or as big as you'd like. Hi, Sarah. And if anybody would like to mirror it back as a way of returning that greeting, that feels sweet. Who would like to try next? Thank you, Sarah, for that. And none of this we're just going for intuitive. We're not going for original. We're not going for interesting. We're not going for anything besides letting your body speak the way it wants to speak. So whatever pops up. Hi! Hey, Mandy. This someone's sweet. I like that. This is a nice way of saying hello. Right? Anybody else would like to do one? Oh, thank you. Thank you, June. All right, so there's so many cultural and intuitive ways to offer that greeting space, right? And we can apply this to movement and dance as well. So I hear folks often talk about like, well, I want to dance, but I don't really know how. Like, I don't have the moves, I don't know the steps, I don't have the training, I don't have the background. But we can also approach movement from the like, well, what do I truly know? And we're all the authorities on our own authentic movement. Like, nobody moves the way you move. You're the only person to inhabit this body at this time in this universe, right? So the movement that you have is yours alone. And I think, yeah, claiming that authority for yourself is a way of further enunciating those movements, right? It's like, if my movements were feeling unsure before, how can I know that, yeah, I'm speaking from an intuitive space, so it can't be wrong. Your movements can't be wrong if they're from your, from your instinct, from your intuition in that sense. But I'd love to pause and think about that. Does anybody have any thoughts or observations from thinking about dance and applying this lens of like, if you are using your intuitive movement to source your dance and your movement, does that shift anything? And that's just something to sit with. That's just something to think about. Because I think at this time, movement is so helpful and so healing. And the more we are stressed, the harder it can be to feel like that movement is available. So I wanted to talk a little bit about joy and play during times of stress. I got a little clap out there. Right, so when we're stressed out, and the idea that we've been conditioned to is that the way to take it seriously is to act a certain way, that doesn't leave a lot of space for softness, that doesn't leave a lot of space for play, for creativity. But those things are still healing. We still need those. That nourishes us because we're human, right? We're not robots. We have interior needs, or we have needs for connection, for creativity, for storytelling. And being able to access that movement and that play is a way to nourish ourselves. But that can be a little tricky, right? So I do have one more little play exercise for today. Oy. My bag of tricks is over there. So, like I mentioned, there's so many things that are activated for healing when we move. But approaching those, especially when we don't really have either that sense of dance as like, oh, I can dance whenever I want to for whatever reason, it can be helpful to have a prompt. So I'd love to share, I call it freestyle tarot. And if you've been in class with me, you might have seen this game. I know that I've got some alumni on this healing circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 2 cards at random, and we're just going to take a minute or so to see what it's like to embody these random concepts. Partly, this is by design. This isn't a gotcha game. There's no right or wrong way to do this. And again, just like the other exercise, it can be done from complete stillness. And I encourage you to take it in whatever way feels best, whether it's more intentional and close for imagination purposes, or if you want to try some movement out, why not? You can always turn off your camera if you really want to, again, get super weird. So I encourage you to get super weird if that feels good for you, because yeah, let's just get out of this universe for a little bit. I'm going to be calling upon this, and ooh. All right, everybody. Angular demon. So I don't know if this reverses for you, but the 2 cards that I pulled were Angular Demon. Now, if you want to take a minute or two to pause and think about what that might look like. All right, we're starting from the top down. I'm doing this with you. Sometimes I pull these ones and I'm like, I've never seen these 2 together before. It's a real situation. We don't know what's happening next. But what are some ways that we can convey that angular demon, right? Like, are there angles that we can create in our own bodies? Are there ways that we can shift ourselves in a way that looks like demonic or maybe menacing, right? Can we bring this through for ourselves in a way that's like conveying both? And there is no right or wrong way to do this. These angles can be as small as you want. These are angles. The bend of your hand. You can use your face if you really want to get demonic. Are there ways that we can exaggerate what we have? Can we grow some horns? can we play with this in a way that feels interesting, or at the very least make ourselves laugh? Because I think that's valid. And I like these exercises. I like that element of just mild curiosity and surprise, because what we're trying to do is cultivate non-judgmental movement. And when we have this expectation of like, oh, dancing looks a certain way, that creates a lot of pressure. And that can also limit us in our own expression because we're trying to match some other ideal. But when we're generating movement, we're saying like, all right, I'm an angular demon. Why does this demon need to be angular? Do they live in some sort of geometry hell? I don't know. What does geometry hell look like? What would I wear? Is it hot? This is the first thing I ask. But we can come up with these stories. And if we have music and that feels good for us, we can apply these same principles into our movement. So I'm gonna pull, I'm gonna do 2 more. They're gonna be kind of fast. So let's just do a rapid fire, see what comes up. All right, freestyle tarot. If you wanna do these at home, they're literally just note cards. And I write down some sort of action word, like some sort of, like, so this one's growing, or a description like shadowy, and then some sort of like subject, such as the wind. What else do we have? A ghost, robot. And you can play this game with yourself too if that feels good. But all right, drawing some cards. This is also nice because it's distant association. You really can't anticipate what this is gonna look like. Brave jellyfish. All right, I'm a jellyfish, but I'm very brave. Wow, look at me go. That confidence, these jellies. Look at that conviction in these fingers. Let's try another one. Let's see. Just for a minute, we're gonna try one on. Oh my God. Party snake. What does party snake look like? Snake's doing the swim too. You know what? Snakes can swim. Your party snake is going all over the place, Mandy. I don't know. It's rolling. I mean, snakes don't have arms, right? So you can just go full out torso movement. Wiggle it around. I like party snake. I think I'm gonna remember that one for my next freestyle session. So I hope that felt good. I'd love to kind of check in a little bit. How did that feel for you? How did this prompt inspire some movement, or are there any things that you took away from that little exercise? Party snake. Thanks for the play. I'm glad to play with everybody here. Drink. Permission to give less fucks. Play is great for removing some of that self-judgment around like how much you have to give a fuck about how silly you look. Again, there's no right or wrong way to be a party snake. Just don't hurt anybody. Don't hurt yourself. You're doing a great job. So yes, I hope that this helped create a little bit of ease, a little bit of softness around this concept of play. I hope that felt fun for you. It was definitely fun for me. So I'd love to close up for today's healing circle. I invite you to keep mindful of moving with slowness. We created a wonderful play circle, and sometimes going back out into the real world really fast can be quite jarring. So I invite you to maybe hold on to those gentle feelings, that sense of ease, of relaxation, whatever positive things that you would like to carry with you. Maybe like almost think of putting a little, force field around them, telling your inner child like, hey, we're still gonna play. This is cool, but give yourself some space to really ease back into reality. And just for fun, this is just for you. This is my present to you. I'm gonna pull 2 more cards. And if you really feel like having a dance party, you wanna tell me about it, and post about it. You want to do it for yourself. I'm just giving you one more. Ooh, this is gonna be good. One more prompt for the road. Sacred Berry. So if anyone would like to take this with them, I hope that the sense of play carries through the rest of your day. Please take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time for some more play, some more recess, and some more chilling the fuck out. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye. Bye, bye, bye.